Good evening once again. And here at the end of the day, in this strangest of times, we take time to just be quiet and be a bit reflective and to be aware of God's real presence with us, because that's really what the point of all these reflections are, is to draw our attention to that, even in the strange circumstances in which we find ourselves now. Tonight, I'd like to do a little show and tell. If any of you have ever been to my office, you know that right over my bookshelves, I have this portrait. It's called The Annunciation, and it is the Annunciation of the angel Gabriel to Mary, painted by an African-American painter named Henry Ossawa Tanner. The original of this is in the Philadelphia Art Museum. But one time when I was on retreat, the retreat director, as I got to a point in the retreat where I was praying with the story of the Annunciation to Mary, the retreat director said, "You know, I have a perfect image of that for you." And he went over to his desk and he had like a postcard that had this picture on it. And it was magnetic for me. I was fascinated by it. And so I'd like to share some of that fascination with you because I think it has a bit of, probably a bit of something to teach us about Mary and about God. I think both of which sometimes we get a little confused about. So let's look at this. It's interesting to know that Henry Ossawa Tanner, born in the United States and grew up in the Midwest, then lived for the most part in Philadelphia, before he went to Europe and lived in Paris. But a lot of his early paintings were pictures of poor African-American families living in humble surroundings, going through their daily life. There was a certain realism to his painting. Later on, when he was living in Paris, he had the opportunity to go to the Holy Land, and he was around Egypt and Palestine, all through there. And when he came back, he painted this painting. He took what you and I know as a very familiar scene from the Gospel of St. Luke, the Annunciation of the angel Gabriel to Mary, telling her that she was to be the mother of the long-awaited Messiah. And he took it. Now, I don't know about you, but when I see pictures of the Annunciation, you know, Mary always, is dressed in a nice medieval outfit, and it's color coordinated, and she's usually kneeling down with a little prayer book in front of her saying her prayers, and she has rosy cheeks and things like that. A bit artificial and pretty much on the money. It didn't happen like that. But having been to the Holy Land, Henry Ossawa Tanner decided to paint something that was a little bit more true to form, true to the lifestyle of the people that he saw in Israel. And so this is what he drew. Obviously, the colors are very rich, and they're really the colors of the morning in many ways. And that's how he portrays Mary. For here's Mary, portrayed not as a grown woman, but probably as the 13, 14, 15-year-old girl that she was when the angel Gabriel came to her. And she's just obviously getting up because she's still in her bedclothes and her bed is messy. And she's gotten up, sitting on the edge of her bed, not unlike a lot of us do in the morning before we start into our day. And she becomes aware of God's presence. Now, I call your attention to Mary's face. The look on her face to me says, "What are you talking about? I don't understand this. What's happening?" The natural bafflement of a 13, 14, 15-year-old girl who has a powerful and overwhelming experience of God, which is, and of course, we know angels in the scriptures always mean messengers of God. They bring God's message. So that look on her face, with just the light of the portrait being shed on her, and she's just looking at it with that questioning look in her eyes. The image of God in the picture, the angel, is not again, like a lot of times angels are portrayed in beautiful outfits that fit them perfectly, and nicely combed hair and the like. The image of God, the image of the angel, is portrayed as a shaft of light. It's a shaft of light. There's no image in it. A bit of toward a white in the middle of it, but just the image in it. Because the importance of the story is not the angel, whatever this angel was. The importance of the story was the message that God was bringing to Mary, this young girl in rural Israel, over 2,000 years ago. And the shaft of light is undecipherable. I can't figure out what the shaft of light is. Isn't that kind of like our image of an experience of God? I can't quite figure out why it is. I don't know why I'm being drawn in this direction or that direction, but I have a sense that God has something to do with it. I can't tell what it's all about. Even in these days of the pandemic, I can't tell what this all means or what God would have us understand from what's going on here. So that undefined image of God is so much more accurate and true to form. Much like the image of Mary, the image of the angel. It's just, you can't, it has no figure or face, but Mary is caught by it, and the light of the image of the angel shines on Mary's face and on the rest of the room. Again, the room is humble, probably a little bit more upscale than the room that Mary was in might have been at that time. It's got a nice rug here that has a little bump in it and the like. But Tanner was really trying to portray what really happened at the Annunciation. Mary having a sense of God, but not being able to tell what it was, and the experience of God being really undecipherable, a bit vague, and they're caught in this connection one with another. Now, does your experience of God ever feel like that? Does your awareness of God in your life, and maybe even of God's call in your life, does it register in you like Tanner was trying to portray the Annunciation in this painting? I think for me it's right on. It really does speak much more accurately than a lot of other artistic portrayals of the Annunciation or lots of other images when people try to image Jesus or the story of his day or whatever. This speaks much more to what I know and experience as an experience of God, and how I sense God's presence in my life. I can't quite define it or nail it down. It defies that. But I know that it's got something to do with God, as it appears Mary may have as well. So the best way that you could approach this, you might even want to look it up online to see a little bit more about it, The Annunciation by Henry Ossawa, O-S-S-A-W-A, Tanner, T-A-N-N-E-R, to look up the portrait. Or if you're in Philadelphia, go to the Philadelphia Art Museum and see it. And once again, ask yourself, does your experience of God, God's presence and God's call in your life, feel at all like this portrait portrays? And with that, we end the reflection and we end the day. You have a good night. May God bless you.